Hello, Nelson. How are you today?
I'm very well, Yvonne, and yourself?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thank you for joining me. Unfortunately, it's just me today. You got stuck with me, and Raphael is at a conference somewhere, so you must have gotten pulled into a very important meeting.
Nah, no problem, no problem. You're awesome. So I don't know, is it pro or con, but for me, it's excellent.
Oh, thanks. So I am in Panama today, as we were chatting just before we went live, and tell our audience where you're joining us from.
So right now I'm in Miami, Florida. Yep, it's typically sunny Florida, but
Yeah.
it's a cloudy and rainy day today. But I'm in Florida.
Nice. And so you are, for our guests that don't know you, you are executive director of Rehab Without Walls of Florida. So tell us a little bit about Rehab Without Walls.
Yeah, so Rehab Without Walls, we're a pretty large company. Right now, we're in just 29 states. We have 93 leases, so we have a lot of locations. We have residential services, transitional living. We have day treatment programs. We have post-acute care. We have a specialized school in Texas. But really, where our model shines is in the home and community-based model of approach. And that's when we decided to come to Florida. We decided to start with that model. So we treat
Interesting.
clients in the home, in real life settings, where we return to work program, a return to school program. We have many disciplines: OT, PT, speech, uh,
Hmm.
clinical social work services, neuropsychology, drivers of rehabilitation, and we get clients back into not just work, back not just into school, but back to living a life full of purpose.
Well, thank you. I know that I just met you last year. I don't know how we didn't cross paths before, but I just met you last year at WCI. And we have a lot of different things in common that we sort of see eye to eye on. So, really excited about our conversation today. And today we want to talk about return to work. So, Nelson, let's get started. So, what are some of the common challenges faced when employers are trying to implement effective return to work programs?
One of the things that we see, and one of the things that I was really surprised about, getting into the workers' compensation field was when I heard about return to work programs. Many programs don't actually go to the job site; it's
Mm.
all telephonic. I found that pretty interesting. And I actually spoke about this when I was asked to speak about return to work programs at the Florida Insurance Summit, where a true program, you must have boots on the ground. You must be able to meet the client, meet the injured worker, meet the employers, have conversations with the adjusters and case managers, but you must go to the job site. You must go to the job site. If you do not do that, it's almost impossible to have a successful return to work and a stay at work program.
And why is that? Why is it so important that people have to be there, boots on the ground, to see what's going on?
To see how it is. So I'll give you an example. We can ask for a job description, right?
Hmm.
But as you and I know, many people either don't do the entire job description or take on many roles. However, in that job description, you cannot test the lighting. You cannot test the sounds.
Mm.
You cannot interview others around. You cannot see and experience firsthand what that job entails. Yes, you can do a functional capacity evaluation, but is that real life? No, right? You can test, you can get an idea. Hey, John Doe can or maybe cannot do certain tasks. However, when you incorporate other people, if there's other people in that job site, other aspects, other things that can affect that person's job, what are we doing? Right? We're not really assessing can or cannot the person return to that same job, maybe have a modified duty, maybe light duty, or maybe that job is not appropriate. We have to look elsewhere. So definitely boots on the ground is necessary.
So one of the things that we talk about a lot at Institutes of Health, that's they're based in San Diego, and we do a lot of work with City of San Diego, and the City of San Diego workers' compensation manager Joseph Sousa talks a lot about how important it is for claims adjusters and all the different folks that are part of the workers' compensation team. They actually do ride-alongs with the first responders, the police force, and the firefighters to put on the suits and to carry their equipment belts and really get a feel for what it's like to to live a day in the life of these folks. And so I think it is really important for, like you say, boots on the ground, firsthand experience of what the jobs are like.
And absolutely, I mean, and even pre-job, meaning what happens before you go into work and post job? What happens
Mm,
after you get out of work? So, how's the sleep of that individuals? How's
mm,
their nutrition? How's the family coping or managing the injuries or things that are happening with them because that injured worker wasn't able to work or hasn't worked in so long? What's their financial situation? What's their psychosocial emotional situation? What's their cognitive situation? Right. And then
mhm,
post job, what happens when you get home? Can you even get home? How's your transportation like? And then how are you managing the job stressors on top of your regular life stressors? And that's something that's neglected, right? That holistic, that whole person, whole
mhm.
environmental, whole family field, and things that we need to address in work comp, right? It's not just the work, it's everything that surrounds that work.
Sure. So, how can businesses make the transition back to work smooth for employees after they've been experiencing a long absence? What are some things that they can do?
One of the things that we do at Rehab Without Walls is even before we actually take on an injured worker into our service, we request the job description, number one. We
Hmm.
also request, hey, can we meet with the employer? It doesn't have to be the owner of the company, but is it a supervisor? Is it a manager? Can we meet with them? Can we do a site visit? Just so we understand what we're dealing with when we treat the client in the home and out into the community. Okay. And then we say, hey, this is part of our return to work program where we may just visit. We just may want Johnny, for instance, to go and say hi to his fellow employees, to his fellow
Hmm.
coworkers. Because, as you and I both know, when you're working in a brick and mortar, you're typically there 8 to 10 hours or sometimes even more. So that
Yeah,
becomes a secondary family. So
sure.
just getting that injured worker back into those schemes of things. Okay. Not just, hey, can you perform the job? Can you do this? Can you do that? No, really, we have to show collectively that we care, right? We have to show them that we care. We have to try to disrupt that chronic stress that's going on because you're injured. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how your finances are going to be. Can you live at 66.6% of your salary? There's many, many, many things that go on. So we need to be able to meet with the employers even before we take on the case, meaning we're actually going to treat the client.
Good. And I probably should have gone here before we dove in, but one of the big reasons return to work is so important. We know that the longer an employee is out of work, you kind of mentioned some of them while you were just going through that last piece, but what are some of those reasons? There's a lot of things that happen the longer a person is out of work. So you want to go over some of those things?
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of things that comes to mind right now is, hey, do they even want me back at work?
Yeah.
Do they think it was my fault? You know, can I even speak to them? Right? Is this going to be litigated? Number two, man, do they want me to go visit? Can I even go visit?
Hmm.
Number three, the longer you're at home, the more you may get stuck at us in a Netflix series and not even want to go back to work. Right? You get that comfort of being home, not waking up at certain times, not going to sleep at certain times. There's many aspects that play in that. Okay, you start living your new normal. But we
Right.
don't want that new normal, right? We want you to get back into maybe not that same routine, but maybe a better routine to help you cope, to help you prevent from getting injured again, and to help you be even stronger. So, in the event that an injury may possibly occur, then you can recover quicker.
Communication plays a big role in all of that, right? So, what are some things that employers can do to help maintain good communications and mitigate some of these things that we just talked about?
Yeah, so we have a slogan here that we use at Rehab with the Walls is everyone in the know. Okay, everyone must know what's going on. Okay, whether it's the family of the injured worker, of course,
Hmm.
the colleagues, the managers, the case managers, the adjusters, and the physicians involved in the case. Okay. Once everyone is in the know, once someone becomes injured, okay, then everything becomes smoother. There are no surprises. We'll know, for instance, if, let's say, a brain injured person has light sensitivities, okay, then we test them, right? We check through lumen, we check through light meters, and let's say also with noise sensitivities, noise meters. What can the person handle right now, and what can't they handle? Okay,
Right.
then we go into the work site, okay, with their permission. Hey, can we test the light intensity? Can we check the noise intensity in all the areas that you expect Johnny to work at, or where Johnny was working? So, and then we use that. And then in the rehabilitation phase of things, we help desensitize Johnny to the light and noise sensitivities. Okay. And then we need to, once Johnny is able to increase that, we would need to be able to go back, okay, and let's say he met that, to go back with Johnny to the work site and just to, like I said, hang out. And it's a treatment center. It's not just to go party, but it's really to go
Mm-hmm.
in and out and spend some time in there. Once they're ready to go back to work, don't just drop the case, right? We'll spend some time during that shift. I mean, Yvonne, we've even spent a full shift with clients. You
Mm,
know, we've even changed lighting. That's why the lighting comes to mind right now in this entire facility. And no one really knew the difference. No
mm,
one knew. The only people that knew were the client, of course, and the managers. All right. Because lighting is important. And the naked eye really can't tell. But when you have these hypersensitivities to certain lights, then you will be able to tell. So as long as it doesn't affect anyone else's work, we're
mm,
able to change and modify some things in the facility and or facilities. So it's just basically that open communication, that open door policy, being able to visit the site before, during the treatment sessions, and when the client returns back to work.
and communication is so key. I hear over and over again, like you, I'm involved in several conferences and I speak at different conferences and um, intersect with a lot of different folks. And we hear over and over again that, just simple lack of communication is one of the biggest reasons why employees start to feel alienated and then go looking for an attorney to represent them and things like that. And we know that if we can keep the communications going in the right direction, as soon as an attorney is involved, we know that case is going to get more expensive, right? So communication does go a long way to helping keep things on track, helping to feel the injured employee is feeling connected to their employer. What else? What else is there to know about how important communications are?
Well, with not forget, it's not just the managers or supervisor, it's the fellow colleagues. You know, let's say if an injured worker is going back,
Mm,
okay, and we know that their processing speed of receiving information may take 3 to 5 seconds. That's pretty long if you're dialoguing with someone, right? Takes 1, 2, 3, and then you respond. We can
mhm,
educate, okay, as long as everyone gives the green light for this. We can educate the staff, say, hey, Johnny's coming back. Just maybe speak a little slower. Give between 3 to 5 seconds if you're asking him something or expect something back from him, some communication from him. It
mhm,
may take some time. Okay. Let's not try to bombard Johnny with information back to back to back to back, one step at a time, and then Johnny will be able to produce. Okay, because of Johnny's injury, it just takes him a little longer. Johnny most likely will be the same Johnny you knew, but right now it just takes him a little longer. Okay, that type of communication is needed. Okay, really getting down to the nitty gritty,
yeah.
um, and the pre-work family, right?
Mhm,
Communicating with the family, right? Because when you're chronically stressed and your family does not know what's going on, okay, what
mhm,
happens? They're going to give you more stress, more stress, more stress. When you're in this chronic phase of stress, when you get back to work, you will not be able to focus well enough. You will
mhm,
not be able to do your job good enough. You are actually causing more of a risk of re-injury or a new injury because you are focused. Your brain is focused on either fighting or fleeing. You
mhm.
would not make good decisions. You will not make good choices. You will not, because it's not time for that. The time is
Right.
to attack or to just get away. Okay, so we need to communicate with the family as well right from the beginning. Okay, and through
Yeah.
the process when they return to work.
Absolutely. And also, everybody, so again, our audience is going to be a different, broad variety of different folks in the workers' compensation system. So we always say, regardless of your role in the system, you have to really consider how you're interacting with that injured worker. When you come face to face with the injured worker, everything that you do is essential. Everything that you do is critical, and how we communicate to that individual is really important. So it's not only for the employer to understand, it's all of us. All of us in the system need to really take that seriously and understand that our words do matter.
Absolutely. And at us at Rehab Without Walls, every 2 weeks, we have a clinical coordination meeting where we invite everyone who's on the case into these meetings. And then every month, if we see the client more than a month, we have a family meeting as well. But communication doesn't start or stop there. It's a daily thing.
Mm,
We send notes weekly to the case managers and the adjusters and to the physicians. If we know something new, we communicate that immediately to the case managers, to the adjusters as well, and to whoever's involved in the case that needs to know that information. It is immediate because time is of the essence. Time is unforgiving. Okay, we cannot wait till tomorrow. We cannot wait till 2 weeks from now when we have the clinical coordination meetings. It has to be immediate. We're dealing with someone's life here. Okay, so that's why communication immediately, as soon as we have information, is imperative. So
yeah,
this injured worker can get back to work sooner, right? As you stated, statistics don't lie, the numbers don't lie. The longer someone is out of work, the least likelihood they will return
right.
to work.
And things just get more and more complicated the longer that time goes on.
For sure.
So I have to do a shout out here. I don't know if you know Kristen Carnival Green. She has started Bag of Happies. It's a little gift bag service that she's put together for anybody in the industry. Can reach out to her, and she can put together these little gift bags just to kind of brighten somebody's day. And I know Dr. Claire Musselman.
Oh yeah.
She often talks about just little things like sending a greeting card or sending a quick little email note, just to let the injured worker know that you're thinking about them and that you care about them. Those kind of things are so important, and really go a long way to helping the employers communicate with the employees that are out of work.
Absolutely. It's that psychosocial emotional part of
Yeah,
things that many companies neglect. They just look at the physical aspects of life. It's more to that, way more to that. If you neglect the psychosocial emotional part of things, you will not have the success. You will not have the functional outcomes that are
yeah,
needed, okay, for a great success story. One that has the client living a life full of purpose, has the client completely independent and going back to their same job, the same employer, and the same shift.
yeah,
That's imperative. We have to treat the entire human being, the entire environment, the entire family, their entire system. Going back to what I mentioned earlier, looking at their sleep, looking at their nutrition, looking at their immediate home environment.
yeah,
Okay, looking at their work environment, looking outside their brick and mortar walls into their communities. Okay, what was their schedule like? Were they shopping for themselves? How is that going now? Were they driving themselves to work, or did they have to take the metro? Or maybe that has to change. Can they even know how to take public transportation? So we have to look at everything: the pre-job, during job, and the post-job functions for a human being to really function. Okay, and for a human to really be successful and know that you care. So that's why with us, we in almost all our cases, we have to involve a clinical social worker. And it's not just looking for resources, it's therapy. And we also treat the family as well. Because if Johnny, the injured worker, cannot play with Samantha, his daughter, because of his injury, that's going to affect him. That's
mm,
going to affect him emotionally. That's going to affect him emotionally enough that he will not be able to even want to go to work. Or even when he gets to work, will he be focused on that? or he'd be focused on, man, I can't even play with my daughter Samantha anymore. I can't even go down on the ground with her. I can't take her to her soccer games anymore. My wife looks at me differently, and I know it. I feel it. I see it. She wants me to snap out of this, and there is no snapping out of this. I'm trying my best. So if we neglect treating the wife, treating Samantha, speak to Samantha, and we do that. Speak to the whole family. Hey, daddy, we have to maybe play a different type of game,
Yeah.
and we educate the client as well, the child as well. Plus, our return to work program is outstanding, Yvonne. We get individuals back to work right away. We have a client now, okay? He's still, I don't want to say the rehab center, but he's far from us, but he will be in our service. We're actually starting his services tomorrow without him. We're going into the home. We're modifying the home. We're going to educate the family, okay? This is Johnny now, all right? Just by reading all the medical records, we have to prepare. All right, these are the goals. Okay, we don't know Johnny's goals yet, what he wants, but these are the goals for when he comes home. All right, it's not the same guy right now. Okay,
Right.
so we're treating the family. We're going to the work site as well. Okay, this is happening all this week. We're going to the work site. What type of work did Johnny do? Are there other things that we could probably get him in there earlier as well that he can do? Okay, we could even work with the employer, and we've done this before. Maybe even coming up with a new job. Okay, because if Johnny had some skills that they liked, but he can't really climb a ladder right now to be a roofer, but he was a good supervisor and manager. This technology is so good now that we can use tech with a drone, for instance, for him to inspect the roof. Okay, because he can't get on the ladder now. So that's how deep we look at things, and we help actually make those companies even better.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So Nelson, I know this sounds pretty basic, and for people that are maybe newer to the industry, it sounds like pretty common sense stuff, right? What are some reasons why an employer may not be thinking about return to work or can't provide return to work? Can we talk about that for a minute? Because like I said, it sounds pretty common sense, but I know that there are times where employers are just not able to offer solutions that help get the injured workers back to work.
If the only jobs they have, let's say if an injured worker now has let's say a catastrophic type injury, let's say an amputation of a limb or a brain injury or spinal cord injury, and their job function was a roofer, and that's what they did, and they don't have any other skills, even with us, because we also try to identify skills or other talents, let's say, that a injured worker may have. And let's say that they just can't for whatever reason. That's what makes someone return to the same job, to the same employer, very difficult. If there is just nothing that person can do, okay, at all. That makes it very difficult for the employer. Another thing is, what makes things difficult for an employer is, while that person is out of work, either filling his job with temporary staff or having another current staff member pick up the load. But that could also be risky, right? You're risking many things there as well, and not only physical exhaustion if it's the type of job that involves physical exertion, but it could be mental exhaustion if it's, let's say, an IT type of job. Just doing more can cause psychosocial emotional dysfunctions, and then other things can occur, including burnout. Okay, and then you may have that person call out more.
Yeah.
And other things can happen.
So I know that, like we said, the main purpose in getting employees back to work as soon as they're able, it helps a lot with the psychosocial aspects of what's going on with that person away from work. But I know there's also the situation where, let's take first responders. Like I mentioned at IOH, we do work with a lot of first responders. A lot of times the mindset is like, hey, I'm a firefighter, I'm a policeman, and the employer is offering them a modified duty, maybe working a desk job or something like that. A lot of times the employee is like, I'm not doing that job. That is not what I do. So there's all sorts of things to consider. There's a lot that goes into it, right? So one of the things that Ralph and I talk about a lot is that, workers' compensation doesn't sound like it's that difficult. It's like people get hurt, they need to get better, they need to go back to work. But nobody really stops to think about all these different nuances that go into all these different layers of getting the injured person back to work, right? It's really complicated.
Oh, it is. It's funny you mentioned that. We recently had a police officer. He was SWAT police officer. He was shot on the job.
Mm.
Okay, had a leg injury, and we got him really well enough for him to perform desk duties. He was like, no way, no how, real macho, tough guy, SWAT, and we were able to get him back into not SWAT at this time, but at least he was able to get back into driving, get back into a
Mhm.
working at a shift that not a late night shift, but he was at least able to do that, get out because he liked being out and about. So he was able to do that, and actually now he doesn't want to go back to SWAT. He's actually going to take a different role, a totally different role, more of the detective route he's going, which he didn't even
Interesting. Yeah.
know he would want to do that, right? Because he
Yeah.
loved the SWAT. But since I guess he saw a lot of things behind the scenes, he was like, man, I think I should do this. So it was almost I mean, I don't want to say that anyone should get shot, but his injury was almost a blessing in disguise because his family didn't even want him to be on the beat anymore anyway.
Mm.
So that also played a factor.
Yeah, I've heard similar stories. We have in Tampa, we have Reemployability. That's their headquarters in
Hmm.
Tampa. And I've heard stories that Deborah Livingston has told about some folks that have taken, at first they didn't want to take that because they do a lot of work with charitable organizations to
Hmm.
be able to provide modified duty for employees when the employer can't provide those types of jobs. And same thing, a lot of employees end up going and doing, they didn't want to do it at first because they think, oh, this is beneath me or whatever.
Yeah.
Then they go and do the job and they end up falling in love with the charity. And then they want to do more work like that. So it's really interesting, again, the way things all work out. It's like I think that's the beautiful thing about these opportunities is it does open up the possibilities for people to explore other facets of what their creative side is or what other kinds of things that they like to do.
No, absolutely. And that's why, so, we treat a lot of catastrophic cases. That's about
Mhm.
84% of our business in Florida.
Wow.
Um, and we've had many, 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 many injured workers like that where we have to completely change courses. Just what comes to mind is this carpenter, construction worker, just fell off a scaffold and
Mm,
he's a T10 complete spinal cord injured
mm,
person. And unfortunately, he doesn't know how to read or write.
mm.
And we found that out when we wanted to assess some other skills that he may have that he can pursue. So it didn't stop there. We linked them with the literacy program. We got him into schooling, and he's pursuing. There's many avenues he may go to. He's pursuing different things. Another worker, a cruise ship worker, we had T10 incomplete spinal cord injury
Mm.
with also a mild TBI. He cannot work again in the cruise ship, but he's now in school to be a paralegal because he wants to take
Yeah.
that route. So there are different things that we can help individuals get back into the workforce and live a life full of purpose. Um, but we just have to check it out. We can't just give up on these
Right.
people. And unfortunately that happens a lot. They
Yes.
just give up. Oh, you can't do that anymore. All right, that's it. Yeah, I'm in mine, you're done.
Yeah.
We don't do that. We really take a bigger look and try to link them to programs. Doesn't mean we're doing it, right? But
Right.
link them to programs that can help them live a life full of purpose. You know what I mean? Um,
Very
because
important. Yeah.
yeah, because we were talking about suicide earlier. Suicide rates go higher, right, when you're injured,
Sure.
especially when you're brain injured and spinal cord injured. They go up a whole lot. And if you're a man, it's 3.9 times more. So then the
Mm,
numbers add up, right? So
mm,
we have to address all these things. And it's all about living a life full of purpose. Why am I doing this? Why am I living? Why am I fighting for this? What am I going to do? I can't do anything now. My wife left me, my little baby, I can't even play with her. What am I doing?
mm.
So that's what we have to address the entire human being, keep them focused, get them to visit their coworkers, and get them back on the ball.
Well, thank you. I'm missing Raphael because he's usually, he's the attorney and he's the one that's always bringing up the legal
Mhm.
aspects of why we can't do this or why we can't do that. But I'm right on board with you, Nelson. I think it's so important for us to focus on purpose, meaning and purpose, and it's so important to get people connected to that so that they can get back to functioning in their life the best way that they can.
Absolutely.
So let's wrap it up. We were just talking along and I lost track of time. So let's finish up by talking about some of the best practices for developing a personalized return to work program for employees. What are some of those?
It's really not making anything cookie cutter. All right. Yes, we have a specific program. We have different levels for different
Hmm.
reasons, but it's not cookie cutter. Okay. We need to get to know the employee themselves. All right. We need to get to know the family. We need to get to know the employers and visit that site. All right. You shouldn't just go look at some guideline to say, hey, a roofer should be able to do this. A construction worker should be able to do this. An administrative assistant should be able to do this. And this is what their typical day looks like. Maybe, but not necessarily. That's why going to the site is imperative, not just doing it telephonically or behind your computer. Okay. And if your program does that, because I know there are programs like that, that is just behind the scenes on a computer, on the telephone, locate a company like Rehab Without Walls that actually has a program that you can collaborate with, and they can be your eyes and your ears, okay, and your nose, basically, right? To go to these sites and really see what's going on, see what the real deal is, see if that injured worker can get back to work, and if they can, how soon can they get there?
And it's also one thing that comes up a lot just in conversation and workers' compensation, working with injured workers and whatnot, is the other element of return to work that's so important is a lot of times, regardless of the injury, we're dealing with some level of pain, right? And so injured workers get scared. They get scared of re-injuring themselves, and so they become very guarded. And that's another important element, right, of getting them back to work and in the work environment. Because again, counterintuitively, they're thinking that they're trying to protect themselves, but the longer they're not moving, the longer they're not getting back to work. It might hurt a little bit at first,
Mhm.
and it might hurt a lot, but going through your therapies and doing all these things, it actually helps go through the rehabilitation process and getting them back to work, right?
Oh no, absolutely. And so, and not just focusing on the job description, the job
Yeah.
functions, doing things that they did outside. Hey, did you do pickleball? Let's try to do that. Did you go swimming? Let's do that. Were you the one doing the shopping at home, the
Mm,
grocery shopping? Let's do that. The cooking, because what happens is these natural movements, right, that you have to do when you're doing these activities aren't these cookie cutter sort of linear exercises. They're good, they're great. Of course, you need them. However, you need realistic activities as well. Okay, in order to work your body, in order to work your brain, in order to
mm,
make you feel good. Hey, I could do these things, man. If I could do this, I could probably get back to work too. Wow, the pain is not that bad. Okay, yes, it's I could feel it, but I could fight through it. So having that clear picture, that hey, no, we're not just here to get you back to work. That's one of the goals. We're here to
mm,
make you live a life full of purpose and live better than you were before.
right.
And that's what makes our program, to be honest, Yvonne, great, because they know and they feel that we truly care. We care for them as a human being, and knowing that their job is just one part of their life, a very important one, but it's
Mm.
just one part of their life. And then taking care of everything else takes care of that.
Awesome. Well, man, it's time to wrap up, and I can't believe the time has gone by so fast.
Oh
But
yeah.
it's been a real pleasure talking to you today. I know we chatted about this before. I really can't wait to get you out to San Diego to come see our Institutes of Health clinics, because one of the things that's part of our program is nutrition. So we do work with a lot of first responders, a lot of brain injured patients, people that are having trouble, getting back into function and work like that. So nutrition is a big part of what we do. And just like you were talking about, we have nutritionists on staff that help them understand how to prepare anti-inflammatory meals so that that helps with chronic pain, and just the motions of going and shopping at the local markets and then preparing the meals together with some of the other patients. That process is really beautiful to watch, and it's just really awesome how much something like that plays into their recovery.
Absolutely. That's great. That's great.
Awesome. Well, let's see. So again, thank you for joining me today. And before we wrap, I want to find out, I follow you on LinkedIn and I think you're doing some amazing things. We were just talking about jujitsu earlier, and I've seen your yoga under the stars.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I think you just recently posted something about sound bathing. So
Yes.
you're doing all these wonderful things. So that's awesome. But what does Nelson do when it's time for Nelson to recharge his batteries? What do you do?
Exactly that. So I practice jujitsu. I work out daily, meaning like resistance training every
Hmm.
day. Well, not every day, 5 to 6 days a week. I get in the sauna 5 days a week.
Wow.
I do a cold plunge one to two, no, twice a week. Every Monday, I go to yoga with my wife. Every single Monday.
Aw.
That sound bathing you just saw, that was a 2 hour sound bathing experience that I did Saturday. So I call myself a modern day hippie. I do everything except the drugs and alcohol, but I'm definitely a modern day hippie. It's about love, So, I take care of myself very well. I eat very, very well.
Yep.
I even have a filter in my shower. All right. So I look at everything. I look at the environment. I look at my immediate environment, the environment of my kids, who I surround myself with, the music I listen to, the podcast I listen to. Even if
Mm.
it's in the background, we do ingest that. We really do.
Hmm. Yep.
I make sure that I surround myself with positive individuals, and not just positive speakers, but positive doers.
Mm.
Because like my mom used to say to me, because I was a street kid, to be honest, as a child, I don't want you hanging out with them. You're gonna act like them, and it's a true thing.
It's so
You
true.
It
Yeah.
is true. You start picking up good and bad habits of those around you. Um, and I'm into the gut brain axis. I'm a published author in that. What we eat is not just nutrition; it's information.
Mm.
So I'm really vigilant on that, and I try to do something every single day, something other than here being in the office, something that will make myself and my family, my friends feel good, whatever that may be. Because we'll never get back today, and tomorrow is never promised.
That's
So I
true.
try to take positive advantage of every single day. And I'm into biohacking, so that's why I do like the sauna and the resistance training and the power of jujitsu. And I'll be speaking about that in the Brain Injury Florida conference, plenary keynote on that. It's just there's power in many things that we don't take positive advantage of. We live in a world where depression, anxiety, chronic stress,
Mm.
suicidality is just going up and up and up and up and
Yep.
up and up. And we're going to be exposed to these things, right? But we have to do things physically and emotionally to try to combat that. So I know certain types of exercise, certain types of activities, okay, will help my brain and body be more in that resting state, in that chill state, that when something comes along that may cause stress in my life, that I could manage it better, I could handle it better, and I could make better sound decisions so I don't hurt myself or hurt others. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Nelson. Man, I could talk to you all day. There's so many interesting things we could chat about. I know we've talked about the gut brain connection, and we're going to have to find a way to talk about that either here at Deconstructing Comp or at a conference coming soon to one of the conferences we go to. So
Anytime.
keep doing all the wonderful, amazing things that you're doing. I love seeing your posts, and it's been great talking to you today, Nelson. Thank you so
No,
much.
thanks for having me. Highly appreciate you.
All right. Until next time, hasta
All
luego.
right. See you later.